Good afternoon, everyone. So glad you could come and meet with us today and hear from our speakers today, our young scholars from the College of Education and from the College of Basic and Applied Sciences who have both received early career awards from the NSF. I guess I just would like to know, how many of you guys have heard of this program before, the NSF Early Career Program? Okay, a couple of you. All right. So we'll go over a little bit of an introduction to what it is and eligibility, and then Dr. Jones and Dr. Terletska will share their story, their experience with the program for a few minutes. I've also asked them to talk about the kind of the timeline, so how they got ready to be competitive for the program, and then we've tried to set aside at least a half an hour for Q&A and some conversation about it, because this is not something you jump into lightly, and it's a real distinction to receive this award. Only about 2% across the nation are funded per year, and so we're just so delighted that we have the success so early on here at MTSU. Okay, so I'm Greg Rushton. I'm a faculty member in chemistry. I also direct the Center for STEM Education, and currently I'm in a co-director role for the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs here. And as I mentioned, we have Seth Jones here, who is in leadership, and Hanna here. Let's see, are you in year 5 now, Seth?
Yes.
And are you in year 4? Yeah, year 4, okay. So they've been here a few years each. I'm in year 4 as well. We've been delighted to get to know these folks over the years. They're great.
I'm in year 6.
I'm
you're in year 6?
He's 6, 5, 4.
You're 6, 5. Why did you say 5?
You asked me if I was 5.
And you said
I
yes.
wasn't expecting the question.
Okay. So,
I never know what you're in.
okay. Great. Well, so you've been here a few years. So you're probably going through tenure now?
It's under review. Right?
Okay, great. All right. And Hanna? Close. Yeah, okay. All right. So I'm just going to introduce you to the program, and I'll let you read a little bit about it. The bolded part, I think, is the part that I think is most important, which is why I bolded it. But basically, NSF is trying to support early career faculty at a sufficient enough level so that the awardees are able to develop careers as not just great researchers, great scholars, but also as great teachers. So it's one of the, I think, few programs where you have to show excellence in both your ability to think about how your teaching will be impacted by your work, and then how your research will also be innovative and have broad impacts. So here are the eligibility criteria as of this year. So you've got to have a doctoral degree in some area that's fundable by NSF. I can give you a link to those areas if you'd like. And you've got to be engaged in some research area associated with that. You've got to have at least a 50% appointment as a tenure track faculty member, have to be pre-tenure, and you have not yet received a career award. So you can only get one of these before tenure. Okay. It is due in July, so it's good that we're having this conversation now. Between now and July, I hope that you guys are engaged in regular conversations with each other, with senior faculty, and hopefully with these two folks that have been through it before you. One other thing is that you can only submit one career proposal per year, and you can be in no more than 3 career competitions. So oftentimes this is started in maybe the 3rd year or the 4th year. So basically the 3 years leading up to tenure is when folks do it. So they have a little bit of time to get some pilot results and get themselves grounded in their teaching, and then they're ready. Well, what years did you guys start? Second year. And what year did you apply? I should have prepped you for all this.
I have it up there.
Okay, you do. Okay.
Third year.
Yeah, 3rd year, right. Okay. So yeah, 2nd, 3rd, 4th year is usually when people start. Because unlike these exceptional folks, it's not always the case that you receive it on the first try, which both of them did, but that's, I think, more the exception than the rule. Okay, and then just for those folks that are a little more new to the NSF process. You write a narrative. These are 15-page narratives, single space, and you write a project description that basically covers 5 years of activities. And the minimum award, I think I have it on the next slide. If I don't, I'll tell you. It's going to basically have it's going to be an extended project where you have goals throughout, and the goal is both to advance your career and also the mission of the department organization. So it's very important to have support from your department and from your college and from your institution for the work. It needs to be aligned with the mission of the institution. Okay, so before Seth comes up, let me just say one other thing about, the minimum award that they're looking for is about $400,000, but it can range. There's $25 million, I think that's right, available. So you can. Yours is what, about 500,000 or 600,000? 700,000. How much is? 500, right? So they don't have to be the same budget, but minimum 400. Normally 500,000 to 600,000 is what you're looking at, $100,000 a year or so to support your research. So Seth will talk about his journey for a few minutes, then Hanna, and then we'll open it up to you guys to have some comments, questions, and have some conversation. Thanks.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. Thanks, Greg, for putting this together, for having us. Really grateful for the opportunity. Yeah. Like Greg said, I'm Seth. I go by my middle name, though, so if you email with me or look for things that I've published, it'll tell you that I'm Ryan Jones. And I'm in the College of Education in the Womack Family Department of Educational Leadership. So I just want to talk first about what my project is. This is the title of my project, and it's a 5-year project, like Greg said, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, but it's funded through the National Science Foundation program, often referred to as DRK-12, Discovery Research for K-12 Education. So my project is actually an education research project, and it's a design-based research project where you can almost think of it as an engineering project. You're trying to figure out a design that solves a problem, and then the research is around understanding that design, how it's working, and maybe even some more general design principles that others could use. So the problem that I'm trying to solve is that if you teach classes here where you need students to use data and analyze data, then you might have experienced like, wow, this is really hard. I get students a lot of times that have no idea what to do whenever they have data, especially if it's messy and hard to wrangle. So my approach to this is trying to think early on in K-12, what kinds of experiences can we build for students so that hopefully by the time they get to us, they're a little better equipped. My project is in a middle school, and the way the problem I'm thinking about it there is that science and math teachers in middle school across the last 10 years have new standards related to data and statistics for their students. So yay, that's good. 2 problems with that. Number 1, a lot of them haven't received any training about how you would help someone to learn those ideas. And number 2, there's nothing that helps them coordinate with each other. So science teachers, say in 6th grade, are asking their kids to carry out investigations where they're going to get data that they won't really learn about in their math class until 8th grade. So my project is basically trying to say, how could we have a more coordinated approach to teaching data and statistics in middle grade so the math and science teachers have the support they need and so that they're coordinating with one another. So this is what my timeline looked like. Like Greg said, the due date is this summer. The timeline for me involved a whole bunch of work leading up to that I started describing in 2016, which is when I landed here. Now, I wasn't thinking about a career project. What I was thinking about in my first year is, how do I get some initial internal kind of funding to get research going? How do I get some pilot data? How do I start to build partnerships? So my research, since it's done in schools, I have to have partnerships with teachers and schools that trust me enough to be there, other colleagues, things like that. So early from 2016 to 2018, I was doing that, secured some internal grants to do some pilot work, generated some data, some early publications, submitted some other National Science Foundation grants that were not funded. But that really was kind of regular and ongoing. It wasn't until December of 2018 whenever I thought, you know what, I think that I've got enough here. I talked to my doctoral advisor, talked to some colleagues here. I thought, I might have enough here to start thinking about a career proposal. I had an idea for a project. And so that's when I really started pulling the RFP that described the career program and started to identify the funding program that I wanted to submit it to. So career projects go across all funding programs at the National Science Foundation. So you need to identify what's the place that I want to actually submit this to that I think I can get funded in. That work started in December, kind of worked into the spring of 2019. And then these next few things, these rows right here, all the way from here to collect examples, were things that I was doing from that December all the way through the spring. Pitching the idea to colleagues, any colleague or friend that I had. If you were going to have a conversation with me, I was probably going to talk to you about this just to see, does it make sense? What do you think about this? Talking to NSF program officers, I talked to two different program officers from two different funding programs to get a sense for how do you all think about career projects? What do you think about this idea? Got feedback from them. Collecting examples. So I reached out to 3 people that I knew had been funded, and particularly one that had been funded doing work that's really similar to the project idea that I had. They were gracious enough to give me examples of to give me their actual proposal, sit down, have a conversation with me, talk to me about it. And then I spent spring, so like from sort of now into the summer, writing multiple drafts, sending those to colleagues. Greg read multiple drafts and gave me feedback, other colleagues here at MTSU and at some other institutions. Like Greg just showed, submitted it in summer of 2019, and then it was funded in January of 2020, which was quite a surprise to me, because like Greg said, almost always these are multiple rounds of revision and submission, and so that's why I decided in December 2018 to go for it first in summer of 2019, because that would give me a few years before I go up for tenure. I assumed it would get rejected, to get feedback, revise it, and then resubmit it. That's what I thought my plan was going to be. So I think that you should see this table, but know that January 2020 is usually rejected, and then a couple of rows about revising, and then sometime in the future is accepted. That's just more normal. And if you ask, well, why do you think yours was accepted the first time around? I don't think it's a real principled answer to that. I don't know. I can tell you what I did, but I don't have any clear, like, this did it. So some things that I think you might want to be thinking about if you're interested in submitting a National Science Foundation career proposal is, number one, do I want to do this? It's a long project and you aren't allowed to have co-PIs. And so it needs to be an idea that you're really invested in and interested in, because a 5-year long project, even if you have a bunch of money to do it that you don't want to be doing, is not very fun. So do I really want to do this? The way I think about it is, what's the work that I'm really passionate about that I think this would be a good fit for getting funding for? I could be really excited about it across 5 years. Also, what's feasible at MTSU? I had lots of ideas for projects that might have been feasible at other institutions, but at MTSU, they just weren't feasible yet because of where our infrastructure is. I didn't have the right colleagues or things like that. So what's a project that could reasonably be done here at MTSU? Think about timing. So like I said, I submitted 3rd year. I think, Hannah, I'll let you talk about when you submitted. But I did that because I assumed I was going to need some more years to revise and resubmit before I went up for tenure, because it has to be before you're tenured. And then how can my college and department support me? I would be, quickly in conversations with your department chair and with, dean as appropriate within your own world. We all know that all of our jobs look pretty different from department to department across this campus. And so getting a clear understanding from them, how they're willing to support you, even kinds of teaching load they'd be willing to commit to across those 5 years, because you have to submit a department chair letter. And with the proposal, I use that as an opportunity to get in writing some things that my department chair had already been doing to support me, but that weren't codified or written down anywhere. What funding program do I want to submit to? I'd already talked a little bit about that. And how can I start working on this right now? Don't think, once my classes are over in May, I'll start working on it. My writing definitely changed when May hit. When classes were over, I was like spending most of my days on that, but I was already sketching out outlines, trying to get Zoom calls with people, getting examples I could read and learn from. And actually the outline of my proposal is very similar to one of the examples that a friend let me see. So all of that, there's no way it would have been successful without all that work happening. All right, I'm gonna let Hannah come tell you about.
Thank you, Seth. That's great.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. It's great to see such a lot of interest in this program. So that's very encouraging, especially in our move to R2. and thank you guys for organizing this. We didn't have this kind of workshop when we were applying 2 years ago, so appreciate that. So my name is Hanna Terletska, and I'm from Physics and Astronomy Department, CBS College. So this is a slide showing what my NSF career is about. So this is a title, but basically I am from NSF Division in Material Research. So this is physics and chemistry also apply there. Again, this is FiveYear Project, and my research focuses on, I do computational physics, computational research. So it focuses on quantum materials, and I'm basically pioneering quantum material research at MTSU. Quantum material research is very much funded now. It's among 10 big NSF ideas, so I'm bringing this to MTSU. In particular, I am trying to improve our way of understanding this and modeling those materials by improve numerical methods and simulation and applications. By going to something that we have been constantly neglecting in analyzing these materials. I am not in educational research, so, and as Greg mentioned, NSF career is about you as a scholar, so it means a researcher and an educator. So half of my proposal was also about educational plan and a lot of broader impact. So broader impact in my proposal was about quantum education, because we need a workforce development for this very demanding type of research and industry demand for workforce, and increasing diversity, inclusion in STEM and physics in particular. So I put my efforts in that direction. All right, so let me tell you how I approach this. Before coming to MTSU, I was a postdoc in several places. I have never written a single grant. I was writing papers and doing research, but never written a single grant. So first thing what I did, try to understand what NSF career is about. I think that's the first thing you have to do. Understand the rules of the game, right? So read and read again the solicitations. If you are the first, second year faculty, it's not even easy to read such things. Sometimes it's not, I don't understand what they mean. So going to workshops like this, going to NSF workshops, watching YouTube webinars and workshops, that helped me a lot. And talking to Office of Research and Sponsor Program. So it should be understandable, the NSF career, as it says, it's career, so it's about you. That is what my chair told me. They're looking for the leaders in the field, somebody who other people will be looking after, after them. So it's about you and your career, so you have to have a vision. This is the type of proposal you really have to have a vision. Long-term vision and short-term vision. Short-term is 5 years, but what is next step? That should be there. Vision should be there. At physics department, our department chair, Ron Henderson, sends all new tenure track faculty to American Institute of Physics workshop for new faculty, where there is about teaching day and there is about grant writing day. But also he sent me to NSF new PI workshop, and that was all about grants and about NSF career. That has been very useful and very helpful, a great opportunity to meet NSF program directors. I didn't meet my program director, I met from biology department, but we had a mock NSF career panel. That has been super useful. Right. Because how you interpret, this diversity, what they're really looking for, that was in the panel. Also, I went to Gordon conference. I met my NSF program director. He was rotated by the time I applied, so I didn't talk to my program director at that time when I was applying. But at that time, I asked my program director, can I be a reviewer? So by the time I applied for NSF career, I already reviewed one NSF career. And I reviewed several regular grants. By now, I have reviewed 4 NSF career proposals. So I can see, I don't know if I didn't track anything, if they have been funded yet. So become a reviewer, because this really helps you to understand how people review your proposal. I think this is very critical. You really need to understand how you will be judged. So understanding there are 2 criteria, intellectual merit and broader impact. You can go to NSF and find this out and then write your proposal to satisfy this criteria. That's very important. So that's what I have done my first semester and continue to do through the writing. Then develop grant writing skills. As I said, I have 0 experience with grant writing, and we just don't do this as a postdoc. so in our field. So it's very important to remember proposal writing is very different than paper writing. I did see people copied introduction from the paper to propose. It didn't work, of course it doesn't work. So it's very clear to understand that this is different. How do you learn this? Ask for examples. Look on internet. There are so many examples of NSF career, even just a regular NSF grant. It's really helpful. So I did read a lot of NSF grants. And I did what Seth did from day number one. I applied to internal grants. Now it's IGO. At that time it was FRCAC. And 2 weeks of me being here, I applied for ORNL proposal. It's short proposal, but that was I was working on developing collaborations starting at MTSU. So from day number one, you work on other grant writing skills by starting small grants, internal and external. By the time I applied to NSF Career, that was my second year. On my first year here, I applied for NSF regular grant. We failed. Then I reapplied in spring next year. We got it by addressing the issues that had been identified in the first year. And that was really, really helpful experience because a grant is not just project description. There are so many other things that go into. If you're a new PI, it's a lot of things to take and learn. So that was very helpful experience for me. And then another thing, developing grant writing skills. It's really to learn how to sell your ideas, how to, as Seth said, go and grab some colleague and try to talk them into your idea and see if they buy it or not. And then I say, then you will, after discussing this, you will see what you are missing, some pieces. They say, oh, okay, I will come back. By the time I was writing my proposal, I talked to so many people. I think my department chair said, Hanna, I think the whole MTSU knows that you applied. But he connected me to really important people like ORSP, right? So you are from chemistry department. You have a real treasure, Andrea Friedley. Go and talk to her. She has been super helpful. So I would do that. And my colleagues at the department, my department chair, read my proposal 3 times. 3 times. So that was a lot of work. So again, proposal, great idea is, somebody told me, 40%, 60% how you sell it. Selling is a very important skill to develop. Then I started to develop my career, right? Some grant. So it has to be really impactful, transformative idea. And I struggled with that for a while because I thought it has to be like, how can I save the world? It's not like that actually. It's impactful in your field. Basically, make some speech for yourself, like what you will be famous in 5 years for. And try to answer this question by targeting your idea. And it takes time to develop a coherent story. So it takes time thinking and maturity. It has to be really career vision, short-term goals and long-term goals. And then we are from MTSU, when I was here, our program director at that time was there. And everybody was saying at that time, right, there was no career winners here. And they say, our zip code is hurting you. So that was very discouraging, right? Absolutely discouraging. So like, no way you can get it. And the more I read about NSF career, the more I watch webinars of like, no way somebody can get it here. And then there was a turning point. I watched a YouTube webinar from the college, which was PUI, Primary Undergraduate Institution. And that person got it. I'm like, oh, maybe, but we are not PUI anymore and we are not EBSCO anymore. So we are competing against Vanderbilt, UTK, Princeton, Harvard, University of Michigan, everyone. So, but it's doable. You see, I hope our example will encourage you that this is doable. So, but in order for me to show that this is doable here, what I have done from the day number 1, get preliminary data, right? Establish collaborations, like here I was targeting Oak Ridge National Lab because that was the most logical collaboration here in Tennessee, because I wanted to demonstrate that this is doable at MTSU. At MTSU, I have no other colleague doing computational condensed matter. I don't have a big group to discuss. So I'm literally a single person doing this, but publishing papers and giving invited talks, I give a lot of invited talks, I was able to demonstrate that this is doable here at MTSU. In fact, about invited talks, last fall, I reviewed some NSF career proposal. I'm reading this. I didn't look at the name. I'm like, wait a minute. I know this person from somewhere. I heard about this research. It turns out then we went to the same conference and we are presenting at the same time. That's how I learned about this person. So going to conferences and giving invited talks is very helpful because some of those people can be reviewing you later. And then it's very, very important to show that you are not your postdoc advisor extension. Don't make your research incremental. For NSF career, it's very, very important. It shouldn't be incremental, and it shouldn't be your postdoc's research that you propose. I did review proposal where everything was about how their postdoc advisor was great. Okay, all the preliminary work was about their postdoc advisor. It's not going to work, and it shouldn't be incremental. It should be really like some new things, impactful things that you can bring into the field. Since I'm not in educational research, I needed to show that I am actually serious about my educational component. So I was working on this, maybe starting from my second semester. It's not just, it's important not to just say, I'm going to do something, but to show that you have done something already in that direction. It gives much more credibility. Like I was showing that I will develop some course that we are missing, but which in our case, it should be integration of research and education. So I have already developed 10 lectures of that course, and that has already been on the website. So that shows credibility. I mean, she has done this. She's serious about this. Or in my case, it's about women in physics. So I have established a women in physics group. We have done outreach activities, and you have pictures from those. That goes into your proposal, that you are not just saying, I'm going to do something. You're already doing this. So that's really important to keep in mind, because it shows that it's doable and it's accomplishable. And then grant writing. For me, grant writing takes a lot of time, and it's like 2-5 days per page, so it's like 2-3 months of writing. I did the same thing, like started in spring, but before starting writing, I went back and read again about NSF career. I needed to refresh my memory what it is about, and I get again a lot of examples. It wasn't in physics. Sometimes people wouldn't share with you if this is active grant. So I found some old grants, I found some from computer science, and they have been helpful. I was looking mostly, like you said, for structure, how to sell the idea. So that was what I was looking for. And it takes time. It took me like 2 or 3 weeks to read through all the examples. Then please make sure that you have at least 1 month for review, getting feedback and implementing the feedback. It's super critical. My NSF career proposal was reviewed by my department chair 3 times and by 3 other colleagues from here and outside. Like 6 people vetted it. So it's super important. And Office of Research and Sponsor Program, don't submit them the last day. This is too late. At least 3 days before the deadline. They will be super busy. So that's important to remember. Please remember that grant writing is not about project description only, but also about data management, some budget justification. A lot of things goes into, and this is a lot of writing too. So put some time into this. And navigating fast line is also not easy. This is how you submit proposals. So put some times, reserve some times for that. And this is my, I did what Seth did. I stole his idea and put the table. So this is what I have been doing. Basically, you can see there are several things, trends that I have been targeting from day number 1, and you do it in parallel. So I came here fall 2017 and submitted NSF career in summer 2019. And so started with learning about grants and also talking to department chair. Department chair letter is super critical. I don't know about your reviews, but in my review, 3 reviews did put in the comment the department chair letter is very, very strong. So it really plays a very big role. And what has to be in your department chair letter, I actually printed out instruction for department chair. I found an example for department chair letter. I shared this with department chair. We said it discussed, but it has to be very clear that what you propose aligns perfectly with what department needs and university needs, right? This is one thing. We are in highly teaching, still we teach a lot. Like on the time when I was writing this, my teaching was 3 classes each semester. So one of the reviewers saying, her teaching load is high, but the latter was saying, I will go down to 2.2, right? So there should be some, department chair gives you, helps you to get more credibility with the reviewers. So what you propose has to be in line with the interest of department and the university, and teaching load, like for us, it's really important. So that has to be in the letter, that your teaching load will be reduced, because NSF will not reduce your teaching load, but you need to show that what you propose, you will be able to do that. You have conditions to do that. From day number 1, grant writing skills applying internally, externally, and I also applied to NSF. A regular grant, that was an excellent experience. I was lucky that it was funded on the second try. And collaborations. I think strong part of my proposal was collaboration, because we don't have any resources here, but I showed that I have the skills, I have tools, but I need collaboration. For example, I need Oak Ridge for high performance computing, okay, for some kind of technical stuff. So that was important. And plus, if you have collaboration, this was like, in my case, really computers. It's not like I need these people to do my research. I can do my research. I just need some resources to do research there. And educational activities, it takes a lot of time to make them work. So show the credibility, show that you have done something to improve this. Since for our proposal, because we are, for people who are not in educational research, you should also show integration between research and education. There should be separate paragraphs that really look through this. So somehow you have to think about how what you propose and what you're going to do as educator can be matched. Okay, like workshop for students, or developing the class in my field, or something like that. For educational activities, please don't do a laundry list. It doesn't work. Do something you're really passionate about. That always helps. And also try to identify what actually MTSU really needs, and that will sell better. Okay, and also try to find what actually you care about, because after you get a proposal, then you have to do it. And they're like, oh, why did I propose to do that? So it's also another trap to be careful about. Writing, it takes time. So started spring, the whole spring semester was about writing, submitted July, and also got it in January 2020. Didn't expect it either, but I don't know. But I want to say, even if we tell you, we give you our examples, we give you everything what to do, a grant is a chance, right? It's really a chance. There is a probability of getting it and not getting it. But by following what we are trying to tell you, or other people are trying to do, I think you can just increase your odds. But don't feel bad if you don't get it, because it's really, really a probability game sometimes. All right, so that's all what I have for now. And I think we are open for questions.
Yes. Dr. Jones, if you both want to come up for the sake of the recording, and if you want to come up here and we'll take questions, Q&A session. We have a good chunk of time cut out for that. So any questions from you all?
We'd submitted, I did. I think I submitted a lot of questions ahead of time. I don't remember what they were. Do y'all have access to those?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I could look those up really fast.
Maybe that would be helpful.
We don't have those, do we? I haven't seen those.
No, I'll pull those up really fast.
I'll toss one out. I know you can only be the PI. You can't have co-PIs, but you can have collaborators.
It's a letter of collaboration.
I'm sorry?
It's a letter of collaboration.
A letter of collaboration?
Yeah.
So
they don't get paid, nothing. They just say, okay, I'm going to collaborate with that person. Please see a letter of collaboration.
Can you fund undergraduate or graduate student workers to help, or a postdoc, or what sort of funding? Your PI, I understand that you can't have co-PIs, but can you have?
What kind of team personnel can you fund?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at, because I've got some ideas, but it's that.
I fund undergraduate students, graduate students, and now we have a postdoc on that.
Yeah, I have graduate students, undergraduate students, and then I also have a small budget for what I intentionally call external consultant. So mine's interdisciplinary between math and science. I've been in that area for a while, but my teaching experience was from the math side. So I said, I want to find someone that does some curriculum development work or has a science teaching background. It's a small piece, I think we budgeted a few $1,000s each year for them to serve as sort of a consultant. Now, I will say there's another faculty member here on campus. She submitted a career proposal, and she submitted it with someone as a senior personnel, not a co-PI, but a senior personnel, and they kicked it back and said that was too far, even though they acknowledge there's not like a clear line in the RFP.
But you do fund a postdoc through yours?
Initially, I didn't have a postdoc on my grant, but then we rebudgeted it, and now I have a postdoc on my grant.
Yeah, I think postdoc is senior personnel.
Yeah, this was another faculty member. This was another faculty member.
Oh, they used someone who's.
Yeah, it was another faculty member
Yeah.
that was going to collaborate with them, and they had. I mean, I won't talk about their project. Anyway, they had talked to program officers there, and the program officer they talked to was like, "Yeah, I think that would be okay," but then the reviewers kicked it back. So,
But this type of questions is also a good type of question to ask your program director.
yeah, what are you looking for? Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, is if they, I know I'm going to ask you a question that might not be appropriate circumstance or correct context. They talk about why that is. For example, where I have to work a lot with hospital systems, they're not going to do anything unless I'm giving them money. They have no interest in that. So it would kind of disable my approach, which is fine. I know grants have to be for everybody, but have they really talked about why they don't want co-PIs?
This is NSF career. It has to be your career.
No, I know, but I can't do work without co-PIs
Well,
in terms of data recruitment, dealing with people, right? Collecting data from people, imaging, that type of thing.
I think I have two thoughts that might be relevant. I'm not sure. So one is that, like Hanna said, the idea behind the program is they're not just funding a project, they're funding a person, and so they want it to be clear who that person is. For me, there were two challenges in that. One, I had to do everything in partnership with schools. And not only are they not going to do it for free, I don't want to ask them to do it for, they're already doing a bunch of stuff. The second thing was that I was doing an interdisciplinary project, and they had in their call, they were saying they wanted more interdisciplinary projects. That was one of my questions was, how exactly are you supposed to have people do an interdisciplinary project when it's only one person? So I do think reaching out to finding the funding program, reaching out to program officers and asking that question, because it could, for me, I also have money budgeted for participants, which for me are teachers that are partnering with us. And there's one teacher there that's our main partner that does a lot of the logistical planning, helps us know when to do, our training sessions and stuff. And we have budget for her to have extra money too.
So almost treating her as a co-PI, but not by name.
That's where I would,
It's kind of
that's where the
fine.
conversation with the program officer, because it probably varies across since they're reviewed within funding programs, it varies across the program.
All right, and I have that next question pulled up. I would like to learn more about NSF focal areas for which a career award can be applied, the ways in which collaborators can be used in executing a career award, and components of an application.
Well, the first answer is they can be applied to any National Science Foundation funding program. So it's super important to find the one that your project would fit in.
And I would add to this, you can also look up recent NSF awardees on career program to see what has been funded, what is now fundable, what do they value. That has been helpful for me too, actually. And about
Components of an application?
project description is 15-page document, which should contain like overview of your proposal, then research plan, educational plan. I don't think they actually tell you exactly what to put. So it's up to you how to structure this, but this is like a common component: overview, preliminary data, some background information, and what you actually plan to do. I also want to mention this. This is one of the things that many NSF career proposals can be killed. As a research proposal, for research component, you put like what you're gonna to do, and and evaluate if successful is gonna to bring to this. If not, I have plan B. So assessment for your educational component should be also there. Many people skip that part, and people emphasize that having an assessment of how successful what you propose for educational component should be also there.
Yeah, it's the same. The big pieces are the same as any National Science Foundation that you can find in the, I forget what the big document's called that describes all the submissions.
Yeah, and I think this kind of thing, like I think the year we applied, they wanted to have a broader impact, like a separate section in the proposal. Then the things have been changed. You always have to read. There's this big book, PAPG or something PAPG or something, which tells you what the recent changes are, because you don't want your proposal just to be returned because you didn't satisfy some of the recent requirements. I think we had to have intellectual merit separate and broader impact separate in the project description, not just in the abstract kind of piece. So these things can change from year to year.
And the last question submitted on here was, what makes a competitive project?
Let's make a competitive project. I mean, something that can be funded. I think for NSF, that's what I have been heard so many times. What you will be famous for, right? Can you propose something that others can follow you step late? They join onto this type of branch of research after you, open new venues for research. That's a competitive project. Or maybe the question is, I don't know what exactly the question means. It can be a broad answer to this.
Yeah, because the idea that Hannah's talking about depends on what the funding program is. These different funding programs exist because they have certain things that they're interested in funding. So that's why it's so important to find the program that your idea fits, and then you can start kind of tweaking your idea to really hit what you know they're looking for. But then, the general things that we've already been talking about, writing a clear project description so that the person that reads it understands the logic of the project from beginning to end. I think, Hanna, you've done a good job of explaining that this is about funding a person. So it's the only thing I think is a little different from other NSF proposals is you're not just describing the project, you're describing the project sort of through you and how this project is what's going to help me get to where I want to be and be contributing to my field in the ways that I envision.
And also, I would strongly suggest go and read review criteria. There's like intellectual merit review and broader impact review, because it helps you to really even kind of write it in such a way that when reviewers read it, you kind of put the words into their mouth. So they can easily find the information they need, information they judge you on. Okay.
And if you review, like Hanna said, if you review, because I did the same thing. I didn't mention that, but I reviewed before I submitted. And man, I learned so much from those 3 days of meeting, because you get to hear other people talk about, what they saw. You get to see how things are scored.
And I would add to this that different programs have different review kind of procedures. Some have panels, some have ad hoc reviews. So call your program director, ask, how is my proposal going to be reviewed? If you're on a panel, this might be a little bit for a broader audience. You might not always get people. You will get some people in your field, but you might also have people who are not in your field to review your proposal. So some part of the proposal should be definitely understandable for broader audience. People who have PhD in something, they should understand that. So it really matters. I have been fortunate. My all reviews seem to be like from experts. I'm like, oh, these people do know what they're talking about. They nitpick every detail, So, and I also want to say, for us, it's also important. Some people, I review proposals and NSF career proposals that people put so much effort on educational component. They basically, I had nothing to say as a reviewer for research component. Okay, so that's no way. It's not going to work. But NSF career, even though it's about career, it's still research component has to be super strong. My all reviews were basically on research, like all details and education. Oh, this is great. So I spent so much time writing educational component. So what I'm trying to say here, having strong research component and strong education component is a win. Having strong research component and very big education component will not get you there. So take these two components very seriously. In fact, I started to write my NSF career from the end by doing educational component, then overview, and then research component. So,
you mentioned call the program officer. Yeah, that's the part I was wondering. Do you need to send email to them to introduce your research first and then call them later?
think, I'm trying to remember what I did.
It was so long ago. I think I did email. I did
Yeah,
email to schedule the call.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, okay.
you have to schedule the call and then they call you.
Yeah. I think you said this too. I spoke to one program officer at a conference. So a conference that I went to, they actually were having a session on career awards. And I went to the session, I asked them, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee tomorrow morning? And I pitched the idea. And actually that was one of the most, because she was from a different funding program I was considering submitting to. And she told me, I don't, she said, I think I hear what you're wanting to do, and I think this other program would be a better fit. And that was the other one I was considering. So, but I think an email that says, hey, here's a rough sketch of my idea, something short. Can we schedule a call?
Thank you.
I just had a question. With all the kind of varying funding options out there with NSF, NIH, all the different outlets, what made you decide on this one, on approaching a career award?
Well, in physics, we have either NSF or DOE or DOD. So NSF was a kind of common thing that people go. So I told you I had very strong doubts because the more I learned about NSF careers, the more I understood, okay, it's not doable here. But my turning point was when I watched somebody's YouTube videos, like people like us can do that. That was a big turning point. Then I started to okay, how do I make it so it can be a good proposal? Write proposal, but I do suggest that. Write proposal as if you want to win it, because the attitude you write it and the quality of work will be different. Even don't expect to get it, but write it as if you want to win it.
Yeah, I chose, so for me, it was National Science Foundation or Department of Education through IES are the two big funding sources. And the National Science Foundation, a lot of it really was about the DRK-12 program. So in addition to the career stuff, the DRK-12 program has a really strong community of support for PIs and graduate students. So one of my graduate students was recently selected to be a doctoral fellow for a year-long training program that they have. And that was something that I knew that I needed, was that kind of support. And then the other thing about MTSU, there are a lot of things about MTSU that we don't have compared to, if you were writing this at Vanderbilt or something like that. But I think you sell what we do have. So for me, like our math and science education PhD program, our undergraduate teacher preparation MTeach program, partnerships that we have with school districts, like I sold it all and explained very clearly how this research and my educational component would work into those.
Or look at this, I don't have this like MTeach and etc.
Yeah.
because I'm not connected to this. I look as an opportunity to improve at MTSU.
Mhm.
This is what you can do for MTSU, for institution. So you can look what you don't have as an opportunity to improve upon.
Yeah, that this project, through this project, if it's funded, I'll be able to contribute these things to our university to grow.
Exactly. And plus, I think the other reason I think both apply because it's 5-year project. So it's fantastic to have your research funded for 5 years. It's typically 3 years in normal grants. So
Well, that's why I asked, really.
yeah, 5
Depending
years
upon
is
how
a
much
key.
money you ask for, right? That's kind of a mid to small level per year for 5 years, though. So big commitment, but depending on how much you ask for, it could be a really big grant or kind of more of the smaller.
But
more
also,
undergraduate stuff,
if you
yeah.
get NSF career, it really changes. It changes how community looks at you, gives you prestige, and you can get invited to more invited talks and be on the panels. It really opens much more opportunities later on, I think. And it increases the ranking of MTSU too.
Did you notice that you approached it? Sorry, I feel like I'm dominating. Did you notice that you approached it different than your other grants, where you focus more on maybe the prestige of the research group to do that work, or you focus more on the work where it sounds like this is a balance of how you were going to progress right as an individual, as an expert in the area? Did you feel yourself having to kind of adapt to that style of explaining your proposal?
Yes.
Yeah.
It almost seems like a hybrid of like a promotion and tenure packet and
Yeah.
like a traditional
And
grant
that's a
proposal.
very good question that you ask because I have, as a reviewer, I have seen NSF career proposals where research part was very strong, but educational component was basically brought the input component copied from a regular NSF grant. So don't approach it this way. It should be really like kind of vision thing.
That's where I think looking at finding some other examples that have been funded were really helpful for me because I had a hard time imagining how am I supposed to structure this in a couple of places, and seeing 2 or 3 people, knowing they were all funded, and seeing kind of, some common things across them were really important for me.
Yeah, the same here. I took a lot of time thinking about structure, as well.
Other questions?
Do you think, in terms of projects, do you think they have kind of preference between the theory-oriented projects and applied sciences? Do they have any?
I don't think so. I don't know, and I don't think so. But you can look up what has been funded through the program you want to apply and kind of get the idea what NSF is now interested in.
And I think it depends on the program that you submit it to.
Yeah.
So I know even within my world of quote, STEM education research, that the program that I submitted to, I knew there were certain things about the research that they are really going to want. Versus the other one I was considering, I would have written it way different because it's a different program, and I know they're much more on the applied side. They want to know what is the curriculum that's going to come out of this. And then there are other programs that I didn't consider that are very clear. They want fundamental knowledge to be the main thing that comes out. So I think it depends on the program that you submit to.
That's why I called program direct.
Yeah.
It can be intimidating. I remember the first time I called, you hear I have an accent. And when they ask me where you're from, Murfreesboro, it's a very difficult word on a phone interview. But in my program, I've been lucky. They were very nice and polite people. And actually, this is part of their job, is to make you successful, to help you to be successful.
Yeah, that's a good thing to know. It's normal for them to get these emails and calls. That's a part of their job. So they're not going to be like,
you're not
what
irritating
is this
them.
person trying to talk to me? That's
Yeah.
part of their job. They're looking for people to do that.
So what's the expectations for the level of collaborative efforts that they would like to see? Because you did mention that it has to be something that is doable at MTSU, but at the same time, we can't have other PIs and collaborators. I mean, we could have collaborators, but they can't be PIs. So what would be that level of expectations that they want to see as collaborations in the proposal?
That's I think, so this is, I'm trying to think through kind of Cheney's question earlier, that this is similar to that. Basically kind of 2 things. What's the scope of responsibilities that this person will have on the project if they're going to be a part of the proposal? But I think the other thing is, what's the intellectual contribution? So a lot of time, not always, but a lot of times when you have co-PIs, it's clear, these people are working together because they both bring a particular intellectual contribution to this project. With it being career, they're going to want to be clear that the PI is the one that's driving the ideas forward. And so that's one thing to make clear. Whoever else is, I'm wanting to work on this project, they're a part of it, they're collaborators, but I'm the one that's driving the idea forward. I think on scope of work, I think you just have to call the program officers, because there's sort of a fuzzy line that apparently is out there, but it's not like a certain number of hours or a certain dollar amount or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It should be clear that it's you, not your PI, co-PI is doing the job. I cannot generalize this. I can just say what I have done. Like in my case, I needed resources from Oak Ridge, just said I can go and do my work there. I didn't need personnel, I just need access to their resources. And another was in Michigan. So in my field, we use some big libraries, computational libraries, and I just was saying that I will be collaborating with them to use their libraries and expanding them. So it was really not them doing anything for me, but me expanding their capabilities of their codes, for example.
And not every project is a good career project.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the other thing, is that if it doesn't seem like it's a good fit for the career program, then go find some other NSF program that it is a good fit for. That if the project really needs to have co-PIs.
I'm just thinking, like, if it doesn't have co-PIs, would it be okay? Because I'm hearing that you, like in your slides, you did talk about how you're building your collaborations with other people first, and then you're writing your career proposals. So if this is something that
we don't mention collaborations in our career proposal, would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. As long as you can demonstrate this is doable at MTSU, how do you show that this is doable? Publish papers,
Right,
reference the
yes.
recently published papers, and show preliminary data, and that's it.
Okay.
Like in my case, I have to show that I can go and access their resources, and publish papers with them.
But for me, if I had said, I'm going to partner with the middle school to do this project, and I didn't mention like, what middle school? Have you talked to them? Are they okay with this? Then they would have just, so that, like for some projects, you just have to say, hey, I've already built this collaboration.
Yeah.
Here's a letter from them saying they want to do this. Here's the characteristics of the place. Here's why it makes sense.
And actually, the same applies for educational components. Some people say, if you're going to work with Discovery Center, you have to get the letter from Discovery
Yeah,
Center.
go talk
that
to
they're
them and
gonna
make
do
sure they
that.
want you to work with them. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just words. So these letters are important.
Do you mind sharing your kind of final application with other folks?
Yes.
Or is there any official place to like find your applications at ORSP homepage or something?
It's available on my website, your proposal?
No, it's not on the ORS website. I don't want to put mine on the ORS website, but if you email me, I'm happy to share it with you.
Yeah, also don't want to put it there yet. When it's over, I will share it on ORSP.
Yeah. But if you email me, I'm happy to share it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have examples on our ORSP website of our internal, the internal grant opportunities, MTIGO. There are examples there for that internal grant opportunity. Okay, any other questions? On this last slide, and I will distribute this recording from today, but here's our contact information. If you ever need the Office of Research and Sponsor Programs, our fantastic faculty, our presenters, thank you for being here today, and thank you for coming along. And again, this will be disseminated via email, and it will be posted on the ORSP website. So thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.